Hello and welcome to Cinematography Database Show. My name is Matt Workman, and today we're going to be breaking down the cinematography of Drive. Drive was one of the most requested films that I break down. I'd never seen it. I'd never even heard of it. I don't know how that happened. Everyone seems to love it. It was a cool movie. I just watched it a few hours ago. Did my breakdown, found some B-roll, and now we're going to put that all together into something that hopefully that you guys find interesting. So Drive. Drive is, if I had to call it anything, if I had to fit it into a box, this is kind of a circle, but you know what I'm saying, a box. I would say that it is a modern / neo-film noir. If you haven't watched film noirs, I would go check out The Third Man. It's kind of a noirish movie. Like, you kind of think of like a black and white Orson Welles type era film, like 4x3. And this movie has a lot of those same like characteristics and themes and motifs that happen in noir. So we'll be talking about that. But let's hop right on to IMDb. So this film's a little bit old. So it came out in 2011. That's a long time. That's a long time ago. And I definitely didn't watch it back then. So for people who aren't familiar with it, here it is. This is Drive, the IMDb page. Nothing fancy going on here. Directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, with an N at the end of it. I don't know how to pronounce that. And shot by Sir, he's not really called Sir, Newton Thomas Sigel. And he is known, for mostly The Usual Suspects, pretty amazing. And then all the new X-Men movies he has been shooting. Actually, all of them. X-Men, X-Men 2. I guess he shot the pilot for House. That's pretty amazing. And then all the new X-Men movies. There's a new 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea coming out. That sounds awesome. I know his work very well because I've been breaking down the previs and the cinematography of the X-Men movies for quite a while. Definitely a great reel. Pretty good stuff. So let's hop into Photoshop. Here we are at Drive. So this isn't going to be very B-roll heavy, this one. There is some B-roll for it, but nothing like some of the other stuff that I've broken down that's basically all really awesome, like, you know, behind the scenes shots. This is really more of a deep dive film theory style breakdown. So if you guys aren't looking for kind of hardcore film theory, then this may not be it for you, but it does relate to cinematography. I do my best to relate it to cinematographers or directors interested in cinematography. So Happy Chappy, Hap Chap, Chris Woods, Aaron, Baz, Ralph, and 2009 Hoopy. Thanks for requesting this. There were probably some others. I may not have found all of them, but thank you everyone for getting me to watch this movie. I definitely would not have otherwise. So we're going to get all the B-roll out of the way first, all the technical stuff, so that everyone can just forget about it later. It doesn't matter. I thought this film was shot on, I thought this movie was shot on film. It was shot with the Alexa, apparently. It doesn't seem to be an Alexa XT either. It looks like a regular Alexa, so just either 2K or 1080, ProRes 444. I think there's a fourth 4. So that's kind of amazing. So it really shows how the Alexa handles the highlights very well. The way that they calibrated the sensor and the way that they crush all that data into the codec, it really does prioritize the highlights, which is really nice. And there's a lot of highlights in this film, a lot of things that I thought it was film, you know, that held it really well. We're clearly shooting with Cooke S4s down here, and this is an Ingenue 28 to like 76 or something like that. Short Ingenue zoom. Cooke S4 is really standard. Really clean setup with the Alexa. You really can't go wrong unless you're going for something like way dirtier. Here's our director. Clearly there's a lot of Steadicam shots in the hallway, and the bulk of the movie looked like it was a B camera shoot, or A and B camera, so there's 2 cameras on a lot of these scenes. But I didn't see that compromise in the photography anywhere, so they did a good job with that bit. Here's a little bit when they're in the garage. We're going to get right into the real movie. I just wanted to show you some of the gear so that we can get that out of the way. This is an LA film. They're using what looks to be like a Chapman Hustler. Again, the Alexa over here with the Cooke S4s. I think they're using, this is a Tango head. Lets you move the camera like this in a very controlled way. It's nice. I didn't see a ton of stuff going on in this movie that would have been using the Tango head, but maybe they're using it for a quick level. Not quite sure. And then again, the only BTS, this is the last one, the last thing we're going to talk about as far as like actual lighting, we're clearly framed up on probably over the shoulder like this kind of medium shot. And then over here we have, I'd say like a 6x with DP grid on it with probably a 12K through it. And that's just going to fill in from the side over here. And there's likely an overhead keeping the daylight off of her. This looks to be the director framing up. Here's the operator waiting to get his eyepiece back. First AC's tape measures on the back. I've never seen that before. It's kind of weird. and an Alexa with that. Is that a Preston MDR or an Arri MDR? I don't really know. But that's going to wrap it up for the behind the scenes kind of stuff. And we're going to dig right into the actual movie. So the way that I thought I would do this is I'd essentially just go in order of the scenes and kind of break down some of the bigger concepts and some of the, I don't know, some of the smaller concepts and techniques that I'm seeing in this movie. So this is a good time. This is one of the establishing shots in the film. And I'll have to make one note that also I do change the order of certain scenes just to make them flow better for communicating the concept. So that's going to happen too. Right now, if you look at my scene right now, I have essentially dialed my camera to 4300 Kelvin, which makes the ambient daylight in the room blue. So that's what's happening in my scene. And then I'm keying myself with a light that I haven't disclosed to you. I think I have in one other episode. And I've dialed the color temperature of that all the way down to about 2900. So that's warm. The background is blue. That's how a lot of this movie is going down. And we'll be talking about basically right now what I think that stuff basically means. So moving forward, we open up in this city, on this shot of the city. And I think this is like Los Angeles or California. And we see two contrasting colors. We're going to see something like this green, put that here. And then we're going to see also at the same time this orange. So these two colors are introduced to us from a wide shot. This is the color palette for Los Angeles at night, especially. And moving forward, what I'm basically assigning the metaphor of is that the warm light is going to represent nature and happiness and hope, that sort of thing. I know there's some street light that's going to be orange, but in general, you'll see like the sunlight, and the orange light to me represents hope and happiness and nature. And the green light in the movie is going to be representing things that are man-made and that are evil and greedy and these kind of negative things. And I'm going to use that as a metaphor moving through as I dissect the movie. Now, this, if you've never heard of this sort of thing, these are visual metaphors. When I interview bigger DPs than me, which is basically everybody, I really try to get into like what was the director's visual metaphor with you? Did you guys have a visual metaphor? Like I said, assigning green to mean evil and man-made, orange meaning happy and nature. There's things like that. And for me, when I'm breaking down scripts or approaching a movie or even looking at a breakdown, it helps for me to have that sort of like bigger picture, like the why. Why are we adding orange light? There's a reason. And if you keep that reason in mind while you're shooting, that can read to the audience subconsciously or consciously sometimes if they're paying attention. So we have to move a lot faster than that if we're going to do this. So here's one of the first scenes, very first shots. We move up to here and we see Ryan Gosling. We only see his back. And right away we're getting, boom, this scorpion. And the scorpion plays a huge part in the movie. It keeps foreshadowing to like a little bit about his past. In the reflection, we still only see him in half light. So this is a pretty cool way to introduce Ryan Gosling. I feel like everyone, just from the haircut and silhouette, you could still tell this was him. But practicals. We've talked about it before. Practicals are huge. They tell you about the location. This practical is emitting light down here, but there's the cap. So someone is blacked out the top of the bulb because there's no light coming up here. Again, shot by Newton Thomas Siegel, ASC. This movie has a really strong like Grand Theft Auto theme going on, and it reminds you of like the Miami Vice kind of like 80s throwback. And this pink font, I think, is in the music is very like 80s synth kind of feeling. So it's a little bit Grand Theft Auto. I just kept thinking of Grand Theft Auto the entire time I was watching it. Not much to say about this exact shot though. So starring Ryan Gosling, again, more of the green and the orange going on. So we come into the city and we don't know much about this person. They didn't start with like a big bio talking about him. And we do a lot of shots in the car, looking out, kind of first person, kind of Grand Theft Auto-y. And we see these little dials, and do we see his watch? Is his watch on his left hand on the chair? We see his hand, and what's interesting to me is if you watch the mirrors, the rear view mirrors on all of these shots, you can usually see his face. So you have to consider that when you're lighting these scenes, you're not only lighting that way, you also have to think about lighting him in the reflection. And of course, the lighting scheme that's going on is that there are fluorescents and neons and that sort of thing that are green, and then there's going to be orange streetlights coming in and hitting him. Now, despite the orange streetlights that are actually in the scene, my guess is that almost all of the light hitting his face was actually added by the DP, controlled on dimmers, swung around, all tied and strapped onto a process trailer, and 100% controlled. They're not just driving down the street and winging it like, hey, I hope the orange light hits him on the face. This stuff's all timed out. Usually I don't have any behind the scenes, but I could build it in 3D to show you what I think it probably did look like. That would be a big project for me. Another visual motif that we want to pay attention to is the watch. This watch is everywhere. He gives this whole dialogue in the beginning. He's like, you've got this 5-minute window where if anything happens, I'm yours and I'll help you out. And time. Time is a big thing also in noir movies in general. There's always this element of time where like something has to happen right now. Something is going to change. We only have a short amount of time. It's forcing the universe to act right now. Time is a big thing, and it does show its face in this movie. And I think this is a very noir concept, is to really focus in on time. And there's nothing more visual than an actual watch. It's not a digital watch. It's not an iWatch. It's like it has an old hand watch. Very romantic, very noirish again. Here's the green. That's all I wanted to call out in this scene is that, every once in a while there's these, I'm not going to even guess on the name of the lights, the type of light, but essentially if it's LED, if it's some sort of metal halide, whatever. That's actually a helicopter with like an HMI spotlight looking at him. But here's the green. Green is very man-made. You'll see that there's no orange in this scene at all. Even the headlights are here, and the headlights up here, they're dialed down. This is a very cool scene. Very... kind of like Matrixy, kind of reminds me of the Matrix. But again, we're saying that this is man-made and it's a little bit of mean stuff happening. And here's just a cool shot. I'm just trying to like set the scene, set the mood and the color themes for you. This is another still I pulled where we have some orange happening, some practicals, and then there's like the blue from the HMI spotlight from the helicopter. So we have this blue against orange at all times happening. That's really a big theme happening. Here's one of our first locations. And what I want to call out, if we're going to just stick with this visual motif, I'm going to just go with it for the entire breakdown. We'll see if it works out. If you buy it or not, that's up to you. That's part of film theory. It's just a theory, and it's about you proving it. This entire garage is lit by fluorescents. And these fluorescents, by and large, are emitting, I would say, like either a white light or a cool light. You look at the concrete, I bet this is color correct. To me, this foreshadows that the garage is actually a bad place. It's not a happy place. But we look at it and we see Ryan Gosling entering, and now he has warm light on him. So perhaps Ryan Gosling is the good force walking into this kind of like negative scene. He is the orange light walking into the green light. We see this character. We don't know much about him, but we know that he's introduced in shadow a little bit, and he's in this green environment. And I think and subconsciously you can think that he's a bad character. He's a smooth talker, and you start to get to like him in a couple ways. But as you hear more about his story, you realize that he really is a character sitting in a green room with green lighting. So there's something bad going on here. Again, as we look at this scene, let's look at the color palette that's happening here. This is very green. There's a green overhead light, something like this, like a practical. And then we see that because the garage has fluorescence as well. He's the Scorpion, first of all. He is walking in a green environment, so there's something foreboding and evil happening. But you'll see that I don't have a still from this one, but that's basically our main, like love interest, female character. She walks out, and she has this orange. She's walking out of this orange elevator, so she's like this warm, human, kind, compassionate person, leaving her apartment and walking into this kind of like cold green world. That's the way that I see this. Here is her apartment again. Again. There's a little bit of green here, so I guess that doesn't 100% go with our motif that green is evil. But there is a lot of daylight coming through the windows, and I always wondered if this was a stage or not. Sometimes this felt like a stage, sometimes it felt real. I don't know, but you look at what they're setting up here. This looks like my house, honestly. Like there's a nice table here with a bunch of kids' toys on it, and they're walking, and it's very inviting. There's a lot of windows. The windows are like open. There's a breeze. I'll talk about what this is in a second. So. Here's a very cool over-the-shoulder shot where it goes without saying, but she has a very soft, pretty beauty window light happening here. This really bright, happy reflection is clearly a window. There's windows in this reflection, and then there's a lot we see here. So she's very attractive, and that's what we see first. She's got these eye lights which are added by the DP, and it's like this is Ryan Gosling kind of falling in love with her. But there's all this other stuff happening in the scene, and this is what I love about cinematography in movies, is that clearly out of focus, and she talks about this. This is her son, and this is her father. So clearly she's a complicated character already, despite the simple front I think she puts on. And then we see Ryan Gosling in this kind of like super backlit, scary silhouette happening in the mirror. and he's kind of almost looking at this and her at the same time. It's an interesting frame, and the shininess of these bricks or of these tiles gives the DP opportunity to reflect window light into it. So there's her. This is your first read of her, but there's a lot more complexity happening in this scene, and I think that's really cool. Now, in this shot, it gets a lot more cleaned up, so he's got a lot more softer window light, but this is the reverse of that shot. And what I want to talk about here, and this is pure film theory, not film practice, is that you'll see that this is, oops, okay, I lost my thing. This is standard, the standard composition for a shot like this. So she's looking into the negative space at him. This speaks to the 180 rule in a way, but really I'm talking about this negative space that's on this side of the frame. Look at that, he is not looking towards that way. Now we're keeping to the 180 rule, but we've switched the side of the frame that he would normally be on. He would normally be here. But why did they put him on this side? Why is he looking into the short side? He's looking away from the negative space. There's a reason for that. If you watch the edit, I'll do a little bit of edit for you. What does this make you feel? It's a little bit off. There's something happening, and it's a choice to make this type of coverage. And I'll leave it to you to kind of think about it, but I think there's some clear reasons for it. Again, we have her against orange, a warm palette. She's very inviting, very human, very compassionate. And then we have Ryan Gosling, who is kind of subtly being put against a blue background in this scene. Now, it's switched. Again, here's some more coverage. Again, very soft. Very pretty beauty light, huge eyelights. Eyelights are are really attractive. It's supposed to help you kind of relate to someone as you see the light in their eyes. She's being backlit, and she's again against the warm background. Very homey place, very welcoming. He's very much falling in love with her and her lifestyle and the image of her, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And again, Ryan Gosling against the green background. Now, you guys might think this is reading into it way too much, but just kind of watch how this color theme, if you think about it in this way, just moves through this film. We're gonna keep going along here because this is kind of a long movie. The only thing I wanted to say here is you see this weird kind of glare on his face. I think they're using some sort of soft filter in front of the lens, like a soft effects or a net behind the lens in this room, so that shots of her look a little bit dreamy. Here's a point of view of Ryan Gosling looking down at her, and her son is walking away. Is this the last frame here? There's a couple more. And here's him looking down. Now, if we're going to stick with the color theme, we're saying Los Angeles here is all green, blue on the outside. But because he's found her, there's this sunlight hitting him. And he's all of a sudden getting this he's kind of falling in love, right? So he's this kind of, I would say he's a green character. But because he met her, there's this sunlight in his life now. That's what this means to me. Whether or not you think that's cinematography, you'd rather know hey, what light is that? What type of gel is it? That's cool. But these days, what color, how it got made, if it's a 1K, if it's just tungsten, if it's HMI with orange on it, if it's an LED, that sort of doesn't matter. The execution, if this was CG, it doesn't matter. The high level cinematography decision here is to keep with this color theme. Los Angeles is blue. The outside world is evil. He's a little bit evil, honestly. But we have this sunlight in his life. Okay, and if we're going to push this even further, which is going to happen here, look at the lighting on them now. So why is there all this, why are they just letting her blow out with this orange? It's because she is emitting this warm light, and he's in love with that. He's in love with the simplicity of her life. He's in love with how straightforward and innocent she seems. This is a very noir thing, is where the lead female that is attractive seems like this really pure character, but there's actually something going on. And I think that there's a version of that in this movie. She is emitting glowing orange light, and orange is nature, happiness, hope. Again, you couldn't be more blunt with your use of colors here. Again, she is wearing orange. I mean, he's wearing blue, but big old highlight. This whole scene is literally just like this. It's just all orange. It's all happy and orange. And then literally driving off into the sunset. So that's the setup of the movie. That is Act 1. Oh, and we are going to be taking a break at Act 3. I'm going to close that up. So that's the introduction of the color themes, the main characters. Orange is daylight and nature and happiness. Blue, man, grossness. You get it. Fluorescence. When you see the fluorescence, because they're a little bit green usually, they're 4,300 Kelvin, and this one they're full cyan with the color correct. Look at when there's sunlight and look at when there's fluorescence. You're setting the tone of that scene. They set you up in the movie with this. That's the whole setup of Act 1. Let's see how it plays out for Act 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Here we are at Nino's Pizzeria. Nino's Pizzeria. Okay, that's just what I say about that. Here's Nino. Such a good scene. Primarily blue light back here. This blue light back here is foreshadowing this here right there. And this is just a cool shot of him, Ron Perlman, getting hit with some daylight coming through a window. It's a cool shot, you know. In this case, well, I won't go into that, but yeah, so that we have some green light. I know there's some orange back there too, but this is a blue light scene. And it sets it up who this character is. He's a bad guy. Now, here's when Ryan Gosling first meets, I forget his character, and clearly we're looking up at him. So there's this power play where he's like, hey, I'm going to go give you $300,000. Let's make a deal. Like, I'm in charge, right? And what I found really interesting is like, oh, why isn't Ryan Gosling going to shake his hand? You know, and Ryan's clearly on the low angle, so we're looking down at him. So he's in a lower position of power as far as the framing. That's what they want. But Ryan Gosling's like, my hands are dirty. I don't want to shake your hand. And then this guy responds, I'll flip back. He's like, so are mine. Because he's a bad guy. He does bad stuff. But what's also interesting to me, which I didn't quite pick up at the time, this scene feels off, right? You're like, Ryan, why aren't you being a cool guy? Why don't you just shake his hand? He's going to buy a car for you. This starts to foreshadow that Ryan knows something about this guy, this scene. There's something in his spider senses are tingling. He's like, I don't know if I really like this. And this talks about film noir as well. So we'll talk about Ryan right now. Ryan, we don't know anything about him. We don't know much. We saw him do like this weird driving bank robbery type situation. And he got away all smooth. And he's this nice guy. He's being really nice to his neighbor. But we don't know what to make of him. And that's very film noir. It's like, well, who is this character? You find the whole movie is exposition of what is this character's background? Like, what is his deal? This is one of the first places where you realize that, like, you know, he's kind of talking to this guy who's like kind of like mob-esque. And he's like kind of like, so it's like you start to wonder, like, so like what is your background that you were able to read that? I only caught that on the second time around. Here we are in the garage, and this is what that B-roll was from in the beginning. We have we have the let's just make this completely overt here. Green garage. The garage is evil. Okay, I don't know what you guys think about it. The garage is evil. Bad stuff happens in the garage. It's not a good place to be. The people in it, not the best people either. But here she is, the sunlight of his world and his scene. Here's the sunlight poking through the hole here in the car, and then there's her. So she is bringing sunlight into his world, and that's why, you know. Well, I'll talk about what I think about his background is, but you know, that's why he likes her. He's in love with her, that she's innocent, that he could be the father that is missing to that family and live a normal life. Sets up the question: what was his past life? What was this guy doing before that he knows how to drive cars and like now he works at a gas station? Again, it's funny because if you look at this reverse, there should be just like some like bang and hard light on his face, and there's not. But that no one cares. You got to light Ryan Gosling with the soft light because he's in love. That's what's happening. So this is all blue, but you know he's getting the warm sunlight from her. Now, before we go back to this next part in the garage, I want to talk about how his backstory. So in this scene, you get this little dialogue between, I'll just cut back to her. You get this dialogue between these two people here. Okay, I lost my layer. We have a dialogue between, okay, I lost it again. We have a dialogue between these two people. Third time's the charm. And he kind of like jokingly tells her, he's like, you know, like this guy, he's a good guy. He walked into my garage and out of nowhere, sketchy. And then he's like, I want a job. And he's like, you know what? Show me what you can do. It turns out he was really skilled. And that he was like, you know what? And he took the job and I paid him half of what I would normally pay people. And he's so good. He's such a good guy. But you look at that, you take another step back. It's like, why is this talented car person who's like young, attractive, you know, like why does he want to work at a gas station for like terrible money? What is that? You know? Is he running away from something? He just wants like a normal life? That's what it's feeling like. And again, very noir, very, very noir. So this is turning into like half movie review, but I think that's important to talk about for cinematography. Okay, so clearly, I'm just looking for a nice cyan color. Bad guy. We're looking up at him. He's empowered because we're lower than him. We're looking up at him. That's what's happening. It also really works to put him against these big green fluorescents. So this is a very green scene, evil things. All this is evil. This is all evil trying to come in his world. He has this very, very cute orange work light over here with a tungsten bulb in it. And so he's trying to stay warm. He's trying to stay good and fight against this. Fluorescents are very cool, reflections, the silhouette. I won't go into the mechanics part of cinematography. The stuff I'm kind of like trying to clean up my presentation of what are the 5 elements of cinematography that are engaging. They're all here, but I'm not going to dig into them this much. We're going to do some film theory all the way through. So if you've never done a film theory dive like I'm doing right now, a sprint of film theory, here it is. Again, green light. These fluorescents, to me in this movie, fluorescents are evil. It's bad. It's bad guys live with the fluorescents, and that's what's going on here. It's confusing because you kind of like the guy that owns the garage, the Brandon Cranston character, but not so much by the end. Spoilers. Of course, this movie is all spoilers, by the way, just in case you were like, hey, maybe I just want to like watch a preview of Drive. There's no preview. We're just gonna do everything here. Again, bad guy. Moving through. Here we are back. This set is so funny. It's like I thought this was a spoof. This looks like a Beetlejuice set to me, but I won't go there. We have some blue light on his face from the TV apparently, and there's some practicals in the scene. It's interesting. It's basically showing that they're bonding. This scene's kind of over the top to me. More stuff going on. They're bonding. I was gonna talk more about this scene, but I'm not gonna now. I don't feel like it. Here is when he finds out that her husband's coming back. And they're having a party, and he's in his room by himself playing with his toys, playing with a car light. And here we have this fluorescent light, very cool. And if we just want to keep going with the theme, the fluorescents are evil. So he's kind of in a bad mood doing like stuff, but there's still this orange light. There's still this, if you don't believe me about the colors, I don't know. Like there's this orange light that's still kind of faintly just on. It's still giving him a little bit of like hope, right? Again, here's a wide of that shot. Just really cool. We have this orange practical in the background. It's very small, but he is kind of tunneling into this like, gross green light over here, that's happening. But we still have a little bit of hope happening for him, for his character. Now, this is some very interesting coverage. The framing of this movie, I've already talked about it. It's very interesting and it's very on purpose. You don't frame like that for just any old reason. You would expect a frame like this for classical composition to have a person in it here. But you change the expectation. It's kind of shocking. It makes you like kind of re-engage with the scene. Like if there's just a person there, it's like, oh, there's a person walking, but it's like, oh no, she's down here. It makes you, it plays against the conventions of cinematography composition here, and it's engaging. It makes you watch. Here's this close up. This is one of the first times that she's being lit in this dark way. And I think there's a little bit of foreshadowing here that this character, her impact on his life is going to be a little bit more complex. It's not all sunsets at the LA River now. There's a little bit of her husband's in town. This is very film noir. If this was a film noir, she would be like this. She would be like, hey, you want to kill my husband so we can be together? That's a very film noir thing. But she doesn't quite go there. They kind of do a play. They kind of like twist that around a little bit. So here's him, so happy, looking at her. But then again, why are we breaking convention? Why aren't you on this third, Ryan? What's going on? Director wanted you over here, but you took a step this way. So why is he on that side? When he looks at her, this is the second time that he's looked at her, and he is looking away from the negative space. What's going on? What's going on with that, guys, huh? It wasn't the operator's fault. There's a reason you did that. This, again, a very strong use of composition. So we see it's all about his reaction, but he doesn't really quite get it. He's like, yeah, I like that guy. I like him a lot. Mom said he's really cool. And so we see that the father who just came home is being protective. He's like, this is my son. Looks like me, putting my arm around him. And then we see, his wife out of focus in the background. There's tension in this frame. A lot of tension. Then there's Ryan Gosling looking at the wrong side of the frame. So really strong uses of composition, and the colors are there too. So this scene is false warm. This is where it goes against it. Now she is this warm character, right? But you can see that there's tension happening in the frame. So we're starting to get away from that color theme in a way. But she still represents this warm, you see she's dressed in these warm colors. She's got blonde hair. But we're starting to see into that a little bit more, that there's a little bit of falseness in that warmth for her. This is the first scene where we start to get a sense of his past life. And again, in the diner, very film noir. The scene is very film noir. I think it's very pretty, actually. There's a little bit of fluorescent in this Coke case. This is daylight, presumably. Probably a 12 by, reflecting into all this metal stuff. And his jacket, given the color correct, more fluorescence up here, is essentially tinted blue. This whole thing is blue. Now, a little bit of fluorescent. This is just playing against it. I'm not saying that these people are like especially nice or anything, but you get it. This guy, dressed in blue also, he's like, hey, I know you. And also look at the shadow on Ryan. Very side lit. And then look how dark he is here as well. He's like, hey, I remember you. I remember you from your past life. And we're like, oh, what's Ryan's past life? He's like, you drove my brother and me from somewhere something. He's dead now. And I spent 10 years in prison or something like that. Something crazy. It's like, whoa. And then Ryan's the first time you ever hear him talk about violence. He's like, how about you shut the F up? I'm going to kick your teeth in. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, I'll back away. And then there's this really long shot where it just focuses on him. It's like, whoa, Ryan Gosling. You kind of said some mean shit there. What's going on? Oh, I swore. So here we are at Act 3. So after this, we're going to take our break. Oh, I'm just going to draw right on it. I didn't make stuff over it. So the movie starts to get deeper here. This guy's back from prison, and we find out that he owes some money. And apparently in his world, this like Miami Vice, Grand Theft Auto world, you're not going to jail. You're just going to get the crap beaten out of you because they want him to rob a bank or rob a convenience store or something like that. It's like, that seems kind of odd. How much money could this convenience store have? Strong composition here. Clearly this big contrasty shape here, like very contrasty. But then we see the sun hiding out of focus over there. Here we are. Some green light, some more green scenes happening here. You know, this guy, he's no good. He just came back from prison for what we don't know. He said it was shameful. And then now he just got beaten up in front of his kid. Not good. Maybe he's a good guy, but he's not bringing good stuff into the world. There's no orange light for you, buddy. You get the green light. Ryan Gosling, he wants to help them because he's basically saying that, like, you know what? If I don't pay back these people, they're going to come after my kid and my wife. And I don't want that. And you don't want that. You would be sad if that happened. So that's what's happening here. A green scene, if I had to say, you know, the subject matter. This, to talk a little bit about the tech, this likely is a reflector to get this kind of light, like a 4x4 reflector with a big light into it. That's how you kind of get this this kind of feeling light, and you might put diffusion on it, diffuse it out. It's kind of like the center reflect lighting system. That's what this feels like, because if you look at the sharpness of the shadow, yet the softness of this pattern, that feels like a reflector to me. And you can get sunlight feeling stuff in it. This is a very dark scene, and it's kind of blue. It's one of the first times you start to see this blue lighting creep into her world, into her apartment. Very blue color correct happening on him. You know, this is very white light. But overall, color correct is very blue. He's wearing a blue shirt. This is sad times. Sad times for them. We're in the blue part of the apartment. This is interesting. Again, this is the first time in her apartment where things are blue. It's like, it's not so warm and happy anymore. Not everyone's side-lit with this beautiful book light. Now we're getting a little bit of this like far side key happening. You're in silhouette now. Also questioning who you are as a character, letting it go dark. So the movie's transition from this brighter, like, introductory part of the movie, especially in this apartment, to being darker and being a little more silhouette. We're starting to see what these characters are really made out of. Here we find out that those gangsters gave him a bullet. Gave the little kid a bullet, basically threatening him and everyone around him. This is a little bit out of order here. So it's going to kind of break the narrative. Maybe I'll flip up to this one. So here's Ryan after they go and rob the bank. They go and they rob, not a bank. If it was a noir, they'd rob a bank. But in this case, they rob a convenience store. And essentially the dad gets killed. Something went wrong. There was something there. Ryan Gosling's stuck with all this money and this woman who was supposed to help him with the heist. And he's trying to figure it out. And he's in a motel room. Nothing more film noir than someone sitting in a hotel room looking out the window. If you wanted to start the movie as a film noir, this would be the shot. Super film noir. Motel rooms are film noir. That's like the only set you need on a film noir, honestly. He don't trust her. And I keep showing that. Here's him, again, with some pretty cool mirror action happening here. You see her like this. And she's like being all honest. She's like, I don't know what's going on. She's got the low eyelight, the low sad puppy dog eyelight. It's like, is this character telling me the truth? Clearly not, if you've seen the movie. And to me, in this scene, when I see her here acting, lying, and then when you see that same character again in the mirror, in the same shot, not always, but to me, symbolically, this starts to mean that she's two-faced. She's lying. There's something going on here. And you'll see this in certain movies where they'll use mirrors to start to imply different things. Because what is the effect? It's like, yeah, there's a mirror, but like in the end, there's two pictures of her. There's two versions of her. You're lying. You're telling the truth. You're about to have the crap kicked out of you too. Ryan Gosling, again, in the mirror, like when we were in the hotel, he's not buying it. He's in silhouette. That's not happy Ryan Gosling over there. That's mean Ryan Gosling. This hotel room, green. Outside of the world, a little bit of sun, a little bit of hope, a little bit of warmth out there. But they're hiding out. They're hiding from that warmth. They're hiding in this green room. Here is her. And this is a very horror technique, is to have like the main focus here and to have something in the background pop out. So he takes a shotgun and blows her head off. It's a happy movie. This is kind of a cross-cut action. This is when she is being interrogated by the police. And now we have never seen her lit like this. Very dark. She's still got a little bit of hair light to pull her away from the background. But she is very dark here. She's getting this bad news. This is very dramatic. But she's supposed to look beautiful here, what she does. This eye light, it's very beautiful. I mean, her silhouette, she was... This is mean. I feel like her silhouette is part of the reason that she was cast. She's a very like... kind of like baby, innocent, beautiful silhouette, the shape of her face. I mean, I've done 3D sculpting on faces for quite a while. It sounds weird if you don't know what I'm talking about. Like if you're 3D modeling people these days, you sculpt it like you were sculpting clay. So I've spent a long time learning about anatomy and what different facial features are attractive for different reasons, historically why they've been attractive, what they are now, how they're evolved. This is a very, her face is very, I would say like cherub and baby and innocent looking. And I would say that that's part of what makes this shot engaging is this subtle ratio from here to here. Basically, the two eyes and the nose form a triangle ratio. That ratio informs a lot about how people read each other. And there's a similar ratio that goes from the nose to the corners of the mouths. She has a very, these proportions, I'll leave it at this. I'm not going to get into like that type of theory. Those proportions are very innocent and baby feeling. Here's Ryan Gosling. Again, getting some green reflected light off the floor. You get that. I'm not going to keep harping on this. Here's after he kills a bunch of people pretty viciously. See him backing away into the shadow. Ryan Gosling comes from a mean place in the world. So here's the next scene that we're going to break down, but we are going to take our little break here, and we're going to talk about something that is coming up for me and for the database. Okay. So as of recording this, I am going to be guest teaching at a school for cinematography called the Global Cinematography Institute, and it was founded by Yuri Neyman, ASC, and by the late Vilma Sigmund. Those were the two founding members, and both Yuri and Vilmos, having worked in the industry for quite a while, Oscar noms between them, big stuff, both ASC, you know what I'm talking about. They saw what was happening in the industry. They saw that there was this shift towards technology, towards animation, towards virtual production, previs, that there was cinematography as a whole, as a craft, was expanding to encompass other things. And these are very traditional DPs that shot all film. You would think that they were the old guard, but they saw this coming, and they started Global Cinematography Institute to teach expanded cinematography, which they have trademarked. That's their thing. That's what they call this. They call the inclusion of 3D animation and previs and virtual production in traditional cinematography, that entire collection, they call expanded cinematography. And that's what they teach at their school. And if you look at some of the teachers there, I am by far the worst and least experienced person to ever have taught there. They have Dan Mindel from Star Wars, Bradford Young was there, DP from Jurassic Park, you get it. Biggest DPs in the world teach there. So what am I doing? What am I going to be doing at Global Cinematography Institute? I am going to be remote teaching, so I'm not going to actually be there. I'm going to kind of do this remotely because I'm in Boston, they're in LA. We talked about going out there, but I'm running the company. I can't leave just yet. I'm going to be teaching something called Practical Expanded Cinematography, which for me, I kind of call cine design. So it's using previs in a practical way to plan real world cinematography. And that's my specialty. That's what I do. That's what I'm basically dedicating my life to at this point. I'm going to be teaching the concepts of that because it's very in line with their expanded cinematography. I'm going to be teaching and showcasing Cine Designer to the class of people to take it. And I believe I'm going to be making a special Cine Designer GCI release just for them. And it's going to be a modified and very small demo type version. I don't have any free demos out there in the world. The people that take this GCI class, they're going to get kind of like this free demo. But likely once the students that are at this type of a school see this and see the power of it, it's likely that they would want to get the full version and be part of the community that is actively helping me develop it. I have some really cool things to tell you about Cine Designer and what's happening with it. One of the most things that I can tell you now, because most of it I can't announce at this point, is that the community is growing and there are a great range of extremely high cinematographers using it. Can't talk about them too much. As well as people who are relatively new to the film industry and still using it to great use. They're still putting it to work. So that's pretty cool. So I'm going to be teaching at GCI in May. Here's where they reposted an article I wrote a while back on the cinematographer's role in virtual production. I'm a nerd, okay, guys? I'm writing articles about this stuff. But GCI gets it. They see what I see. We see a very similar vision of this. And this is me picking through a couple different documentaries about the VFX industry and my interpretation of that and how DPs fit into it. So that's coming up soon. Really happy to announce our collaboration. Global Cinematography Institute and I and Cinematography Database and Cine Designer see a lot of the same things. And the tool that I built is very much for the DPs that see kind of where the industry is headed. It's for those people. Okay. So let us return to Drive. We are on Act 4 of 6. So, Ryan Gosling, this is a little bit out of order here, but is essentially having a conversation. And regardless of what it's about, he's like, we have troubled times here, sidelit, very dark. And we have, again, this play of like this green light and this warm light playing against each other. They are surrounded by this basically oppressive green light. There's this violence and this negative humanity, if that's a word or a phrase, that's represented by green, just oppressing them. Yet there is still hope. The movie is still giving you hope from this sunlight coming through here. There's a little bit of hope hitting them right in the head. Here's another one of those things. Again, the green environment is oppressive, but there's still a little bit of orange light happening here, though it's a lot less. Less and less orange light in the scene, in the movie. Here's where Bryan Cranston thinks he's going to escape. He's in the shadows. There's a little bit of sunlight on him, but he's not going anywhere. Very dark scene. We see the sunlight here, this like kind of false hope. He's kind of, this guy's almost pretending to be his friend again. But he knows. This dark scene, he knows what's going on. We're looking up at him. This guy's in power. We're little. We're looking up at him. That's what the camera angles mean traditionally. You don't always go with that, but in general, you don't look up at people unless there's a reason. Everything stays level, usually, unless there's a reason. These are the reasons. Then he cuts his wrists, kills him. Not a great deal. Kind of playing against type to have it against the green light here, or the warm light. What are we supposed to think of this character? This is like right after he kills him. There's clearly this orange warm light coming through the room. And he's sitting in front of this window, getting this window light on him. What is our read of this character? Does he feel bad about this? Do we care if he feels bad? Do we hate him? What's going on? What do we think here? This is an interesting shot. They had to set that up, obviously. It's a lot of work to do that whole shot and make it into the movie. Making it into the cut is another thing, to actually have the editor be like, yeah, that makes sense narratively. Let's do it. The fluorescence, blue sad scene. He got killed. Very in shadow. And the high angle like this from straight down, it's like the God's point of view, It's like who's ever watching us is looking at us right now, like judging us, forgiving us. I'm not trying to get religious here, but that's, these down angles would typically mean that, unless it's like from the point of view of a specific person, but it's like, this is someone that's like above us and like all watching. from this angle, and someone has died here, and that's a thing. So that's what that angle means to me anyway in this scene. I don't have a layer for this. So now we enter the Ryan Gosling killing spree scene. So he's gone from being like, who's this mysterious guy? Oh, he's in love. It's all sunsets, to being like, oh, that is a little bit less sunset, a little bit more green light. My friends are getting killed. It's time to stop this. So this is Ryan Gosling killing machine lighting here. This feels like the movie Taxi Driver to me. Interesting here. I didn't realize the Cook S4s have apparently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is probably really boring and kind of like ridiculous to watch me count this. But is this a six-sided? This is a six-sided bokeh. Interesting. So this is clearly the Cook S4 is not closed down. Basically, when the lenses, regardless of how many this has, I could have looked it up, has iris blades on it, the bokeh take on these polygon shapes, so they're not fully circles. The Master Primes and the Leicas have so many blades that you actually can't tell that they're faceted. They seem like pure circles, and that's something that you either want or you don't want. And this is apparently what either Cook or Ingenue bokeh looks like closed down. Something interesting going on with those. But anyway, back to the lighting. Got green light on his face, very side lit, very dark, and then very blown out, kind of representing that he's kind of like blown out himself, kind of like crazy. I skipped this one. Again, very green background, and then we have this red light, which, red is like kind of like blood and the devil, and the evil light. He is about to go in. I think someone was like, what are you going to do? It's like, cut to this scene. I'm going to kill some people. That's essentially what he's saying. I don't have a ton to say about this scene, but here's some like light coming through here. It's like clearly he's got this whole front of a business that's pizza. But the shot that I really liked was this one. Now, this is where the hitman's like, okay, we're going to get some people. He has also the kind of crazy rim light that Ryan had here. That's the I'm going to go kill someone rim light. So if you guys are trying to foreshadow that someone's going to kill someone in a movie and you've been keeping it kind of chill with the lighting, just let it go harsh and blow it out, that's foreshadowing. You get that this character's aggressive, that there's something going on there. He's not like a nice guy. You don't feel that way when you look at movies you look at characters that are lit like this. Full silhouette, fully accepting the darkness. These shapes out of focus are very cool. The other character that killed Bryan Cranston talks about, he's a flaming asshole or whatever like that, and his back is against the wall. He's trapped. He's forced into these decisions. He's like, I probably don't want to always be going out and killing people. That makes things complicated for me. He is forced into killing people in his mind. He's like, you know what? I stole the mob's money. There's a lot of interesting things about race in this movie that I'm not going to really talk about. But he's like, you know what? I kind of screwed up and I need to clean this up. So he's forced against this. So this shot, to me, he's in full silhouette. A little bit of gold light here, but these are kind of like bars to me. He's like trapped in his little pizza prison. And then this scene in the elevator, very top lit, interesting. Here's a little bit of eye light, so there's clearly like a source like down here. Getting in that eye light, you can kind of see that there's this soft fill light coming up from here. They're checking each other out. In this scene, this reminded me of the Romeo and Juliet movie that Baz Luhrmann did, where he pushes her back and the light's dim except for this top light. And there's a kissing scene in the Romeo and Juliet movie. That would be fun to break down, right? I haven't watched that movie in a while. I used to like that. And he's like, yeah. And you see this, like, again, this baby doll reflection in her eye. Sometimes you add glycerin to the people's eyes to make them extra reflective like that. And then he stomps that guy to death in front of her. Pretty righteous murder scene there. And now this is where's the thing here? This is the true driver, or Ryan Gosling. It's like, what was your background? This is what you looked like before you moved to this town a couple of years ago and started working at that mechanic shop. I'm pointing at his nose. This is Ryan Gosling. He's got blood on his jacket, and he just killed someone. And this is her reaction shot of that, right? So she's like, okay. Still like you, but okay. And then we have the dark parking lot where like her husband got beat up and the guy that is her new boyfriend just killed someone by stomping on his head till there was no more head. That's probably what my face would look like too. And again, this is one of the ending shots. It's kind of like, oh yeah, what's this scorpion jacket mean? Scorpions are kind of aggressive animals. Looks like a gang jacket. You were part of something, weren't you? You were part of something in your other life. So here's another like horror scene, straight up horror scene where he's going and just killing everyone who's messing with his life. Very blue, dark horror scene, like super scary. To talk about like the lighting of this kind of scene. So to do twilight or midnight lighting, this light up here that's casting on the ground, the floor, hitting this, hitting that, that's just moonlight, okay? You just gotta go with it. Because if you're shooting at night and you're not doing that, there's just nothing to see. So you make it blue, it feels like moonlight. Honestly, if you have a high enough ISO camera, moonlight is blue and would look like this. It would be one very far away source from the moon, hard light. This is an actual kind of like a good representation of moonlight. I really like doing moonlight scenes this way as well. Here we can clearly see the blue source, a lot of haze and atmosphere to kind of hide stuff. These are very hazed out, you can see. Again, moonlight. And we flip around, and even if you hit him, your talent super hard with it, if you expose by under 2 stops or something like that, you could do it in post. You could expose normal and underexpose later. With the color correct, this will make it feel like moonlight. So this is probably just one big old 18K back here, hitting the whole beach, hitting this all at once. One big light from one angle, just commit. It's the simplest lighting setup you've ever seen in the world. It's like, hey, how are we gonna light that beach? Put the 18K in a condor and shoot it at the beach. Done. From a high angle that feels like the moon, but that's how we do it. It's all about the underexposure. And on the reverse, there's a bunch of warm practicals. So that is Act 5. So we're getting to Act 6 here. Here's the ending of the movie. Hope you guys like this so far, and hope you, if you don't do film theory, like I completely get not being into this because it's not about like the cameras and the lights. This is a little bit more high level. This might be more for like the directors out there, but I think there's a lot to be said for the DPs too, of choosing when you use lighting, why you do things, like that sort of thing. And this is my interpretation of it. I didn't interview the director, the DP. This is what I think is going on. Here we are walking into the meeting between the two guys. They're the last two left. They have a phone call. He's like, we should meet because the last players are me, you, and your girlfriend. So we should talk about what's going on. He's basically threatening his girlfriend. And we see the scorpion. Just big old scorpion. When we see the scorpion, it means that Ryan Gosling's here to kill someone, usually. Here we start off in an interesting frame, and I don't know what to think about this, and I'm gonna, I guess, just ask you, what do you think? Like, you guys are smarter than me. Like, why is he right in the middle? Still in the third, but right in the middle of the frame. Why would you do this? It's not for the 4:3 center cut, which is a lot of the reasons that rom-coms and certain people frame a certain way you have to. This is not for that. Why is he in the center of the frame? And then when we cut around, you're kind of in the center of the frame too. It's an interesting shift that happens. Like I said, when he's looking at the character, I forget her name, the love interest, he is over here, you know? He's been over on this side of the frame, and he's been like in love looking at her, and it's been a little bit off. Like, you know, like why do they put him over there? And then when he's with this guy, he's in the middle of the frame. And so is he. And these are decisions. These are composition decisions, and they tell you something about it. You know, what is that? And you'll see that they're both getting up angles. We're looking up at both of them, whereas before, in the beginning of the film, we were looking down at Ryan Gosling. Like this guy was above him, and now we're looking up at both of these characters. They're more on like an even playing field. So there's foreshadowing here. There's something has changed. He is now on the same level as that character, whereas before we thought that he was below him. And the composition said that. Here we get into a profile. Now, I didn't do a lot of shots in this movie. I didn't break down a lot of the driving shots, but the only time you see someone framed like this in the movie is when Ryan Gosling is driving. Okay, when he's driving in his car, when he's in control. This is the first time we've seen this character in this dueling profile with this big rim light, big edge light. And then we cut to Ryan. Ryan's not backing down. These two are dueling each other. It's like, that's the edit, right? So they're on an even playing field and they're going at each other. And Ryan Gosling's the quiet, silent type in this one, which is the power trick, actually, is to not be the one that talks the most in a conversation. I've read a couple books on pitching meetings and that sort of thing. There's a couple interesting psychological things that they've built into this as far as like power plays in dialogue. And And here's the scene where they stab each other to death, more or less. And it's pretty strong because they do it in silhouette. So that's pretty cool. They have the violence happen in silhouette. And it's more graphic that way, I think. You do see the initial strike, which I'm not going to show a grab of. There was a cool scene that had nudity in it. I decided not to put it on here because of YouTube stuff. And then the extreme violence, I'm not going to show grabs of that either. But it was a cool way of showing the ending of them dying. So here is Ryan. Here we are, this gratuitous shot of his watch, and it's like, is his time up? I think that's what's going on. It's like, if this was a film noir, he'd have like a stopwatch. And if the main character just got shot, he would have like dropped his stopwatch and the stopwatch would have broken. It would have stopped ticking. That's what I feel like is kind of happening here. He leans back into this massive lens flare of the sun. To me, I feel like he feels vindicated here. He's been like forgiven. And I see that in this lighting. It's kind of like I've washed away all the green negativity light in my life, and I've done it. I've killed those two people that were screwing things up. I even got rid of my boss, who turned out wasn't like a very good character in the end. And I've saved my girlfriend, and I'm like, I'm basking in this success, and it's all this sunlight. But we get the impression that he's dead, right? We see the light here, and I don't think this is not intentional. I think this is intentional, that the watch face is blown out. Might even be done in post. It's like, it's blown out because his time is up. The watch is over. The game's over. You've had your time. It's over. We think he's dead. Is this like the carbon like hot wired or something? And we go up to him, and there's this like, honestly, like 3-minute shot of his face. I think with a soft filter on. Again, this lack of contrast here. I think they have the soft filters on for this shot, though there's a lot of detail in his eyebrows and stuff. But we think he's dead. It's like he's being accepted by this daylight. There's no green here. It's all good stuff. But then he kind of opens his eyes and realizes that he is alive still. And we do cut back to the girlfriend who like goes and knocks on his door, and he's gone because he called him. He's like, I'm about to go to a place that like I can't come back from. And we end the movie with Ryan Gosling with the green light, the evil light, and he's sad about the evil light. I think, and he's driving again. He's driving off into the distance. And he's in his car, and he's gonna have to leave that place that he just was, and he's driving off into the green, like abyss or whatnot. So that is the end of that movie. That's my look at Drive. So that's the first time I've ever missed that. Again, it's a neo-noir, if you're into genre breakdowns, and the cinematography is if I just had to call it something, it's green is evil and man-made. It's the oppression of humanity on these people, though these people are not that nice either. And then, the orange is the daylight, it's nature, it's that woman when he first meets her anyway. But then it all kind of devolves into chaos. And this just feels like a film noir to me. And if you wanted to watch another movie that was in this style, it gives me the same feeling at the ending, in the middle. That's also neo-noir. It's called The Grifters, and John Cusack is in it. I really recommend that movie. It's really interesting. It's a modern one. Because if you go back to like the real film noir movies, they're kind of hard to engage with, I find, a little bit. Because they're black and white. The acting is very like, what did you say? It's very, old Hollywood. And the cinematography, I mean, maybe this is blasphemous. It's super over the top. Because that's how you had to film back then. So I would check out The Grifters with John Cusack and tell me if you like that movie. I think there's a lot of common themes between that one and this one. Not in the lighting. This one is a lot more colorful. That one's a lot more like a neutral, like Chicago. Was it in Chicago? I forget what that movie is. Pretty interesting. So I hope you guys like this. There was a little bit of B-roll, but if you are interested in doing me doing breakdowns from older movies where there isn't a tremendous amount of B-roll, this is what they're going to be like. So this is something, just to wrap this up. I didn't go to school for film production. When I say film school, I went to school for film studies, and I never thought that film studies would ever be coming back into my life. I actually hated it. We would watch 20, 30 movies and write 20, 30 essays about them, and I'd have to talk about things like this. But I didn't know anything about lighting or camera work back then, so it was a lot of BS in my opinion. But learning about how to BS, learning about, this is film theory, people hate me now right now, but it's like, you're learning about how to like take a concept and see if it sticks for a whole movie. And for me, I always just cared about like the lights and the cameras. Like, I don't care the why. I just want to know how they did it. But now that I know more about how to do things, like I can look at almost any movie, even without the BTS, and given the context that I've been exposed to and seen and continue to learn and do research, I pretty much know how they shot it. I can guess how they lit it, more or less, not the exact thing, but I know the techniques. And now I'm starting to re-dig into, again, like the why. And I hope that you guys think that that's valuable as well. So to wrap it up, if you like the episode, check out that GCI link. Check out Global Cinematography Institute. It's pretty cool. Obviously not like everyone's going to go to it. But if it's something that's interesting to you and you want to know a little bit more about Cinema Designer, that's going to be a cool opportunity. But there's going to be lots of places to learn about Cinema Designer as well. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode. I'm not sure what I'm going to do for the next one. I kind of have a guess. But this was fun. I had fun doing this. And this is some kind of a change of tone for the show. But you guys let me know if you like this kind of a breakdown. A little bit more high level, more film theory. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye.